I think if you were to make an investment thesis on Ethereum,
Yeah.
it's that these new DeFi things, if they succeed, it will lock up a significant supply of the Ethereum, and that will be like upward pressure on the price because you'll have all
It's
this
already 800 million's already locked up.
Yeah, so you got all this supply locked up so that it's just like the ICO boom. What happened there was all these
But it's no different than hodlers of Bitcoin.
it's similar. Yes, it's similar. And that's why I said if you were to make an investment thesis on it, it's that the more supply that gets locked up, the less sell pressure there is. The supply shock kind of contributes to a price rise, same as the Bitcoin halving. But that needs users and that needs a lot of usage. And I just don't see that data showing that people are going to use it. I naturally don't think that people are going to want to use an algorithmic stablecoin versus Bitcoin, which has a much easier to understand the thesis behind it. It's digital gold makes sense to people when they hear about that. So that's why I don't own much ETH other than
so you're forgetting that Bitcoin's been around 8 years before anything else.
Yeah. Yeah, and ETH is like
only 3 years now coming up.
ETH has been following similar pattern of Bitcoin.
And I'm not here
in its history.
I'm not here as an ETH head. I actually have zero loyalty to anything. I'm just looking at this from objective standpoint. It's
and I'm not like one of those people that are like, oh, ETH is a scam. I don't own any because I don't find it that interesting in terms of I feel like if you're looking at cryptocurrency to get a return on your investment and you're looking for exposure to this new asset class, then just own Bitcoin because it's going to have a much higher chance of succeeding as a global money than any other cryptocurrency because it's the most decentralized, and censorship resistance in the end is, like you said, the most important part of why cryptocurrencies have value. And Ethereum has proven itself to be more centralized because of the DAO hack, where code was law until code wasn't law anymore, and they intervened and refunded everybody. But since then, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing because there's a big, huge segment of people that want to be rescued and want bailouts. Look at the global financial system; it's worth lots of money, and people don't care about decentralization there. So it's not. I'm not saying ETH is not a good value proposition to invest in if you know what you're doing and if you know how to analyze this stuff, and if you do think that make or die is going to be used by people in LATAM and stuff and has an interesting use case, and ETH will probably go up.
It has an interesting use case. Like I said, I don't have any bags whatsoever. I have zero skin in the game when it comes to this.
Right.
The underlining, what excites me is the underlining opportunities or underlining new initiatives that people are building is exciting.
Yeah, I agree with you there, man. I think it is an interesting concept to have an algorithmic stablecoin that is not centralized and that anybody can participate in, that rewards you some kind of interest, like an interest-bearing account. It's better than Tether because Tether's centralized.
You mentioned narrative. Just wait till Libra launches. If they launch, everyone's going to go on that thing.
Well, yeah, I think that's why I'm not as strong as a DAI fan, because in the end, I feel like it comes back to Libra's going to eat everybody's lunch. Libra is going to be the only stable coin that matters.
Yeah.
And Libra is going to then introduce people to cryptocurrency because they're going to search what is cryptocurrency. And then Bitcoin's going to be the one everybody sees, not DAI because they already have Libra, and not ETH because ETH is more like whatever the narrative is at the year.
I don't know I have no idea what the narrative of ETH is right now.
Open finance, DeFi is the current one. But it's also money. There's a real strong growing trend of Ethereum analysts and funds and all that stuff now that they're trying to push ETH as money, and they're competing with Bitcoin as digital gold. they're trying to push that. And to be fair, who's to say what is digital gold? If a million people use ETH as money, then ETH is money. Like, it's just, I can't say ETH is not money if people are using it as money. So, even though I'm more on the maximalist side, we just have to wait and see how it all shakes out. But I got my bets on Bitcoin.
Yeah, listen, like I said, Bitcoin to me is a censorship resistant. That's the only thing I care about is every 10 minutes a block is mined and it's censorship resistant. Anything else to me is irrelevant.
Yeah, and those make or die guys, it's not an Ethereum specific project. They can switch it to Bitcoin.
Well, they just switched to multi-collateral, and their plans is to eventually get Bitcoin. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like it's same as the ICO boom. It was like all these projects launching on Ethereum. Well, this is going to give Ethereum value because look at all the uplift we're going to get from this. And it did while all this ETH was locked up in these token treasuries until they all started selling, and then they didn't have any loyalty to Ethereum, and there was more downward price pressure on Ethereum than there was on Bitcoin because more people had Ethereum to sell. Yeah. And they were building their own projects. Some of them were competitive. Like EOS had billions of dollars worth of Ethereum that they were selling.
Listen, there's a lot of competitive projects in 2020. You have, and it's interesting because they're more geared towards niches, so very specific platforms as opposed to the
transactions per second.
Whatever
the latest and greatest. Anything you're paying attention to that you're looking at, like that Blockgeeks is training people for?
Still organically, man. We approach everything through organic interest.
Like who comes to you to ask for stuff?
Yeah. So
who do you see now is like the most asked for training program?
Well, the enterprise has their own stuff. So enterprise has like private Ethereum stuff, Hyperledger stuff, Coda a little bit. Yeah, that's.
What about like Algorand? Are they you see much demand for that?
I spoke with them, not organically, not at least in North America or Western Europe, but we also track traffic for keywords and sentiment.
You know all about that stuff. You're like a SEO guru.
Well, majority of our traffic, we have about 600 to 800,000 visits a month organic. We control about, I don't know, 150,000 keywords.
Nice.
So, we look at the organic interest and primarily from both developers, regulatory bodies. It's still the mind share is Ethereum, Bitcoin and Ethereum. Yeah.
What about Hashgraph? You seen any uptick there?
Not organically. No, not yet.
Neo?
Like no, not organically.
None of the Chinese projects getting any?
It's one thing we talk with them. They have really cool tech and they have cool people, but I'm just talking purely from organic aspect.
Right. No Ripple.
No.
So it's mostly ETH.
Listen, we have to give them a couple of years, right? So ETH has about 3-year head start on them, and next year you have all these big competitors. You have Cosmos to launch a couple of months ago, and then next year you have supposedly Filecoin and Polkadot.
Right.
You mentioned Hashgraph, and then Definity or whatever. There's so many I can't even keep count. But let's say you have at least 5 major players with huge treasury coming online. So it's going to be interesting when you have probably more than 15 platforms that have a treasury of over $50 to $100 million at their disposal.
Yeah, that's the other thing. That's like a lot of these projects have big, huge treasuries, and they're all competing against each other for similar niches of developer mindshare. Yes, enterprise and like dApps and stuff.
Both public and enterprise, yeah.
And it's like it reminds me of the Bcash community, the RBTC community. When they forked off, it was mostly Bitcoiners arguing with BCH people, who were the big blockers. And then when BSV forked BCH, it then became mostly majority of BSV and BCH fighting each other, which was like Bitcoiners got to outsource their trolling to the other communities because they just started to cannibalize each other. And it still goes on now. You go to RBTC and there's like, it used to be that all the downvoted comments were from Bitcoiners. Now it's all mostly from BSV people. So do you think maybe that because of all these big, transactions per second enterprise blockchain projects coming online in the same time in the next 12 months, do you think it's maybe going to is there going to be an outlier, do you think, like one that does really well, or are they all going to be like eating each other's lunch?
So far from the enterprise, because just of mindshare has been Hyperledger and Ethereum, private chains. But there
And
are
Hyperledger is Bitcoin, is Ethereum, right? Is a private Ethereum or no?
no, it's different. But they have the same EVM now, so it's interoperable. They can use it together.
Okay.
But you have interesting projects coming up that are very focused on enterprise. But for me, is like I'm sure there's a lot of interesting Fortune 500 companies out there building on other platforms, but I don't hear about it. It's not public.
Do you think that any of these big projects that have these huge treasuries are gonna be viable investments for an average person or for the sort of like an
Oh, it's
interested crypto person?
way too complicated for the average person.
Yeah.
Way too complicated. Even if Bitcoin's complicated for the average person, like
Right.
just getting a wallet and teaching them about a seed phrase and keeping that safe is complicated enough. Might as well talking about proof of stake and all this other stuff. It's like it's
Yeah,
not
it's
for the
like
average person.
it's like when Coinbase started giving people 0x, like learn about the 0x protocol and get some
Yeah.
get some ZRX tokens. Like, what the hell? Like people on Coinbase don't need to know what ZRX is.